The emergency medical bay of the Kepler Trade Station buzzed with activity as Dr. Kesatharas' 4 arms moved in practiced precision over her patient. Her chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under the harsh medical lights, compound eyes analyzing every detail of the wound on the human's forearm. The bite mark was unmistakable 2 puncture wounds surrounded by the characteristic purple discoloration of Nexari spine crawler venom. Fascinating, she muttered in her native clicking language before switching to standard galactic. Ambassador Chun, I need you to understand the gravity of this situation. The neurotoxin coursing through your bloodstream is one of the most lethal substances known to biological science. It attacks the nervous system of all carbon-based life forms with ruthless efficiency. Sarah Chun, Earth's first interstellar diplomat, sat on the examination table swinging her legs like a child at a routine checkup. Her brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her diplomatic uniform bore the scorch marks and tears of someone who'd spent the morning crawling through the station's maintenance tunnels to rescue a trapped Zephyrian child. How long do I have? Sarah asked, her tone casual, as if discussing the weather. Dr. Kesatharas' mandibles clicked nervously. In her 50 years of practice across 17 different species, she'd never delivered this particular death sentence to someone so calm. 6 hours, perhaps 7 if you're exceptionally resilient. I've already contacted your embassy to arrange for final communications with your homeworld. Sarah's response shattered every protocol Dr. Kesafara had learned about terminal diagnosis. Delivery. The human laughed, actually laughed, and began rolling up her sleeves. Which one are you worried about? This one? The doctor's compound eyes widened as Sarah revealed her arms. What she saw defied every principle of xenobiology she'd studied. Sarah's skin was a roadmap of survival, marked with dozens of scars in various stages of healing. Some were neat puncture wounds, others jagged tears, and still others bore the distinctive burn patterns of chemical exposure. This jagged one here, Sarah pointed to a scar on her left wrist. That's from a brown recluse spider when I was 12. Caught it in my grandmother's basement. Mom thought I was going to lose the arm. She traced another mark on her forearm. This beauty is from a box jellyfish in Australia. Most people don't survive those. And these matching dots? Coral snake. My idiot brother dared me to pick it up when I was 14. Dr. Kesathara's medical scanner began beeping frantically as she ran it over Sarah's arms. Each scar registered residual toxins that should have been fatal individually, let alone in combination. The readings were impossible. No known species could survive such exposure. Ambassador, these readings, they indicate you've been exposed to toxins that would eliminate entire populations. How are you still alive? Sarah shrugged, pulling her sleeves back down. Earth's a tough neighborhood. Doc, you learn to adapt, or you don't make it to adulthood. My hometown had rattlesnakes, black widows, poison ivy, and that's just the stuff that stays put. Don't get me started on the mosquitoes. The intercom crackled to life. Dr. Kesafara to Emergency Bay 7. We have a 10-3 diplomat showing signs of severe toxin exposure after brief contact with the human ambassador. Dr. Kesafara's antennae twitched with growing concern. Ambassador Chun, I need you to remain here for observation. Something about your physiology requires immediate study. But Sarah was already standing, straightening her uniform. Sorry, Doc, but I have a trade negotiation with the Crystalline Collective in 20 minutes. Can't keep them waiting, apparently. They consider tardiness a form of biological warfare. As Sarah headed for the door, Dr. Kesathara noticed something that made her medical training scream in alarm. The bite wound on Sarah's arm was already beginning to heal, the purple discoloration fading to a healthy pink. In her database of medical records, she'd never seen a recovery rate like this. Ambassador, she called out. At least tell me, do you feel any symptoms? Nausea, Dizziness, neural disruption? Sarah paused at the threshold, considering. Actually, yeah. The venom has this weird minty aftertaste. Kind of refreshing, actually. Reminds me of the gum I used to chew as a kid. The door hissed shut behind her, leaving Dr. Kesethara alone with readings that challenged everything she thought she knew about biology, toxicology, and the limits of organic life. Captain Vextar of the Kepler Trade Station had seen a lot in his 30-year career, but nothing had prepared him for the scene in Conference Room Delta. The crystalline, collective delegation lay shattered on the floor literally. Their silicon-based bodies had cracked like glass, and their bioluminescent cores flickered weakly. Ambassador Chun stood over them, looking genuinely confused. "I swear, I barely touched them," Sarah said, examining her hands. "Just the standard diplomatic handshake. Maybe they're allergic to human contact?" Dr. Kesethara rushed into the room, her portable scanner already beeping ominously. "Captain, we need to evacuate this section immediately. The atmospheric readings are off the charts." "What do you mean?" Vextar asked, his reptilian features creased with concern. His scales had already begun to dull, a sure sign of toxin exposure in his species. "The human's exhalations are registering as a Class 7 biological hazard," Dr. Kesethara explained, her voice tight with scientific fascination and growing horror. "Carbon dioxide, yes, but also trace amounts of compounds that are lethal to silicon-based life forms. She's literally poisoning the air just by breathing." Sarah looked mortified. "Oh, come on. I brushed my teeth this morning. How bad can it be?" The answer came from Lieutenant Commander Zira Okafor, Sarah's own security detail, and a fellow human. She entered the room and immediately knelt beside the fallen crystalline delegates. Let me guess, they tried to interface with the ambassadors. Neural patterns? Dr. Kesethara's antennae perked up. "How did you know?" "Because the same thing happened to the Psi Collective on Rigel Prime," Zara explained, her dark skin gleaming with the faint sheen of perspiration that Dr. Kesethara now realized was probably toxic to half the station's population. "Turns out, human thought patterns are so chaotic and aggressive that they overload most telepathic species. We call it neural noise pollution." Captain Vextar was backing toward the door, his scales now completely gray. "Dr. Kesethara, I need you to run a full spectrum analysis on both humans, station-wide now." The next 6 hours turned into a nightmare of scientific discovery. Dr. Kesethara's team worked frantically to catalog the myriad ways that humans were inadvertently toxic to other species. The list grew longer by the hour. Their skin shed microscopic particles that caused allergic reactions in fur-bearing species. Their saliva contained enzymes that dissolved the protective mucus of amphibious races. Their electromagnetic field disrupted the navigation systems of energy-based life forms. Even their emotional states registered as hostile pheromones to empathic species. But the most disturbing discovery came when Dr. Kesethara analyzed Sarah's blood samples. The human circulatory system was a cocktail of compounds that would be classified as weapons of mass destruction by the Galactic Health Authority. Caffeine, alcohol metabolites, preservatives from processed foods, traces of industrial pollution. All of it had been integrated into Sarah's biology, as if her body was a walking chemical weapons facility. How is this possible? Dr. Kesethara asked as she reviewed the data with her research team. No species should be able to survive with this level of toxicity in their system. Dr. Yintar, her Altarian colleague, manipulated the holographic display with his tentacles. "Look at the adaptation markers in her genetic sequence. This isn't natural evolution. It's more like biological warfare that's been going on for millions of years." The pieces began to fall into place. Earth wasn't just a death world because of its harsh environment. It was a death world because everything on it was engaged in an endless arms race of biological warfare. Plants evolved poisons to avoid being eaten. Animals evolved immunity to those poisons and developed their own. Microorganisms evolved to break down everything organic. And humans had evolved to survive in the middle of it all. "Captain," Dr. Kesethara called over the intercom, "we need to discuss evacuation protocols. The humans aren't just immune to our toxins, they're so toxic themselves that prolonged exposure to them could be fatal to most species on the station." Vextar's voice crackled back, noticeably weaker than before. "How long can we safely coexist?" Dr. Kesethara looked at her readings, then at the two humans who were calmly discussing dinner plans while surrounded by the evidence of their own biological toxicity. "I honestly don't know. We're in uncharted territory here." The Galactic Emergency Council convened in the highest security chamber of the Kepler Trade Station, though "convened" was a generous term for what was essentially a collection of life support pods, hazmat suits, and holographic projections. Only the most desperately curious scientists and diplomats had agreed to be in the same physical space as the humans, and even they maintained a minimum distance of 50 meters. Ambassador Chun sat at the defendant's table, looking remarkably composed for someone who just learned she was essentially a walking weapon of mass destruction. Commander Okafor stood behind her, occasionally munching on what appeared to be a sandwich made from ingredients that registered as toxic waste on the station's sensors. "The evidence is overwhelming," declared Chancellor Mordak of the Regellian Assembly, his voice filtering through multiple atmosphere processors. "The humans represent an existential threat to galactic civilization. Their mere presence contaminates everything they touch." Dr. Kesethara stepped forward, her exoskeleton gleaming with protective chemical coatings. "With respect, Chancellor, I believe we're looking at this from the wrong angle. The humans aren't weapons, they're survivors. Earth has produced the most resilient species in known galactic history." "Resilient?" Chancellor Mordak's tentacles writhed in agitation. "They exhale poison, shed toxic skin particles, and their blood could be weaponized to destroy entire star systems. How is that resilient?" Sarah stood up, and several delegates immediately increased their distance. "If I may address the council?" The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of air filtration systems working overtime. "You're right," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "We are toxic. We are dangerous. We are walking biological hazards who shouldn't exist according to any reasonable standard of galactic biology." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "But that's not the whole story," Sarah continued. "Dr. Kesethara, would you please display the Earth biological survey data?" The holographic display flickered to life, showing Earth in all its chaotic glory. The delegates gasped as they saw the planet's surface, a world where literally everything was trying to kill everything else. Volcanic activity, extreme weather, radiation levels that would sterilize most worlds, and an atmosphere so corrosive that it would dissolve the hulls of most spacefaring vessels. "This is what we call home," Sarah said simply. "A world where the plants wage chemical warfare, where the animals inject neurotoxins as a greeting, where the microorganisms dissolve organic matter for breakfast. We didn't choose to be toxic. We evolved to survive in the most hostile environment in the galaxy." Commander Okafor stepped forward, pulling out a small device that made the station's sensors scream with alarm. "This is a standard Earth First aid kit. It contains substances that would be classified as weapons of mass destruction by your standards. Antiseptic that dissolves organic matter, pain relievers that would be lethal to most species, and antibiotics that would eliminate entire ecosystems. The point is," Sarah continued, "we're not trying to hurt anyone. We're just trying to exist. And if our existence is toxic to you, then maybe we need to find a way to coexist rather than eliminate each other." Dr. Kesethara's mandibles clicked. Thoughtfully, Ambassador, I've been studying your species for the past week. Your toxicity isn't just defensive, it's adaptive. You've mentioned that the Nexari venom tasted minty to you. Have you considered that your body might be processing these toxins as nutrients? The chamber erupted in horrified chittering, clicking, and various forms of alien alarm. The idea that humans might actually feed on poison was apparently the final straw for several delegates. Order! Chancellor Morduk called out. Dr. Kesafara, are you suggesting that humans are toxivores? I'm suggesting, Dr. Kesafara replied carefully, that humans have evolved beyond our current understanding of biological limits. They don't just survive in a toxic environment, they thrive on it. Their bodies have learned to process compounds that would kill other species and convert them into useful biological functions. Sarah looked genuinely surprised. Is that why I always feel energized after visiting worlds with high radiation levels? I thought it was just the excitement of exploring new places. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If humans could process deadly compounds as nutrition, what did that mean for galactic civilization? What happened when a species evolved to the point where other species' defenses became their food source? Council, Sarah said finally, I think we need to discuss this more carefully. And maybe someone should call Earth. Because if what Dr. Kesafara is suggesting is true, then humanity's expansion into space isn't just first contact, it's the beginning of a completely new type of interstellar relationship. The chamber fell silent as the full implications began to sink in. Humanity wasn't just immune to galactic toxins. They were potentially the apex predators of the biological warfare that had shaped galactic civilization for millennia. Asterisk. 3 days after the council meeting, Dr. Kesafara made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden in the classified sections of the Galactic Medical Database was a file that shouldn't have existed. Comprehensive study of human physiology, dated 3 years before first contact. This is impossible, she muttered, her compound eyes scanning the data streams. The research was thorough, detailed, and clearly based on direct observation of living humans. But according to official records, humanity had only made contact with galactic civilization 8 months ago. The file contained biological profiles of 12 different humans, including someone identified only as Subject Prime, who was genetic. Markers matched Ambassador Chun. Exactly. Dr. Kesafara's investigation led her deep into the station's restricted archives, where she discovered something that made her exoskeleton tremble with fear. The Nexari spine crawler that had bitten Sarah hadn't been an accident. It had been deliberately introduced to the station's ecosystem 3 weeks before the ambassador's arrival. Someone wanted to test human toxin resistance, she realized, her medical training warring with her growing paranoia. But who and why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Commander Okafor appeared in Dr. Kesafara's lab at 0300 hours, moving with the predatory grace that the doctor now recognized as a uniquely human trait. You've been asking the right questions, Doc, Zara said, settling into a chair that creaked ominously under her weight. Time you learned the truth. The truth about what? Dr. Kesafara asked, her hand hovering over the emergency alarm. About why humans are really here, Zara replied. Spoiler alert, we're not the peaceful explorers our diplomatic credentials claim we are. The revelation hit Dr. Kesafara like a physical blow. You're an invasion force? Zara laughed, a sound that the doctor's enhanced hearing registered as containing subsonic frequencies that triggered anxiety responses in most species. Invasion? Doc, we don't need to invade. We just need to exist in the same space as you four. A few years, and natural selection will do the rest. The pieces fell into place with terrifying clarity. Human expansion into space wasn't about exploration or diplomacy. it was about ecological dominance. Every human outpost, every diplomatic mission, every trade agreement was slowly poisoning the galaxy's other species. The crystalline collective, Dr. Kesethara whispered. They're not recovering from Ambassador Chon's contact. They're adapting to it. Bingo, Zara confirmed. Turns out that species that survive initial exposure to human toxicity develop interesting mutations. Enhanced resistance, improved cognitive function, increased aggression. We're not killing the galaxy, Doc, we're evolving it. Dr. Kesethara's medical scanner began beeping frantically as she aimed it at Zara. The readings were unlike anything she'd seen before. Your toxin levels, they're not constant. They're fluctuating based on your emotional state. Humans weaponize everything, Doc, even our feelings. Zara's smile was predatory. Fear makes us release pheromones that induce panic in empathic species. Anger increases our toxic output by 400%. Happiness. Well, let's just say that human joy is chemically indistinguishable from warfare pheromones to most species. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just evolved to survive on a death world. They'd evolved to turn other worlds into death worlds through their mere presence. They were an invasive species that didn't need weapons or ships or armies. They just needed to exist. Why are you telling me this? Dr. Kesethara asked. Because you're the only one who figured it out, Zara replied. And because we need allies, not enemies. The galaxy is about to change, Doc. Species that adapt to human presence will thrive. Those that don't. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Dr. Kesethara understood perfectly. The choice facing galactic civilization wasn't between coexistence and conflict. It was between evolution and extinction. What do you want from me? Dr. Kesethara asked finally. Help us make the transition as smooth as possible, Zara said. Help the galaxy adapt to us instead of fighting us. Because like it or not, we're here to stay. And everything that doesn't kill us makes us stronger. Dr. Kesethara looked at her scanner readings and at the human sitting calmly in her lab. Commander Okafor was right, the galaxy was about to change. The question was whether that change would be guided by scientific understanding or driven by biological warfare. I need to think about this, Dr. Kesethara said. Take all the time you need, Zara replied, standing to leave. But remember, thinking too long is a luxury that extinct species can't afford. As the door closed behind her, Dr. Kesethara was left alone with the terrible knowledge that humanity's expansion into space wasn't first contact, it was the beginning of the end of galactic civilization as everyone knew it. Part 5. The choice, the emergency session of the Galactic Council, was held in the most secure chamber available, a sterile, hermetically sealed environment on the far side of the station, isolated from any possible human contamination. Representatives from 47 species had gathered, their environmental suits and biohazard protocols creating a surreal landscape of technological paranoia. Dr. Kesethara stood at the central podium, her research data projected in holographic splendor around her. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity wasn't just toxic to other species. They were an evolutionary catalyst that would reshape galactic civilization, whether anyone wanted it or not. The question before us, she began, her voice carrying through. Translation systems to dozens of different species is not whether humanity poses a threat. They do. The question is whether we respond with fear or wisdom. Chancellor Mordake's tentacles writhed in agitation. Dr. Kesethara, you're asking. Used to accept a species that turns our worlds into poison. How is that wisdom? Because, Dr. Kesethara replied, extinction is the alternative. The chamber erupted in protests, but she continued. I've spent the last week analyzing biological samples from every species that has had contact with humans. The results are consistent. Exposure to human toxins triggers rapid evolutionary adaptation. Species that survive initial contact develop enhanced immune systems, increased cognitive function, and improved physical capabilities. She manipulated the holographic display, showing genetic sequences that told the story of accelerated evolution. The crystalline collective delegates, who shattered from Ambassador Chan's touch, they're not dead, they're metamorphosing. Their silicon-based structures are adapting to process human toxins as an energy source. Impossible, gasped Administrator Trelk of the Altarian Medical Corps. Silicon-based life can't process organic compounds. Not yet, Dr. Kesethara agreed. But evolution doesn't care about our preconceptions. The collective is developing hybrid biomechanical systems that bridge the gap between silicon and carbon-based life. They're becoming something new. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If exposure to humans could drive evolutionary leaps across species barriers, what did that mean for the future of galactic civilization? Dr. Kesethara, came a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Ambassador Chun had somehow bypassed all the security protocols and environmental barriers. She stood in the doorway, looking entirely too calm for someone who'd just been declared a walking extinction event. Ambassador, Chancellor Mordake's voice was shrill with panic. You're contaminating the chamber. Actually, Sarah replied, stepping into the room, I'm offering you a choice. The air filtration system screamed as they tried to process the sudden influx of human-generated toxins. Several delegates began evacuating, but Dr. Kesethara noticed something interesting. The species that had already been exposed to human contact weren't retreating. They were adapting in real time. 3 months ago, Sarah continued, her voice carrying easily through the chaos, Earth's deep space monitoring systems detected a massive energy signature heading toward our solar system. Something big, something hostile, something that makes humanity look like a minor inconvenience. She manipulated her wrist communicator, projecting a holographic display that made the entire chamber fall silent. The image showed a vast, mechanical construct drifting through space easily, the size of a small moon, covered in what appeared to be weapon systems. The Devourers, Sarah explained. A machine intelligence that has been systematically consuming biological life across the galaxy for the past 1,000 years. They're about 6 months away from Galactic Center, and they're not interested in diplomacy. Dr. Kesethara's analytical mind immediately grasped the implications. You're saying that humanity's toxicity is a defense mechanism? I'm saying that. Earth has been preparing for this war for millions of years, Sarah replied. Every poison, every toxin, every biological weapon that evolved on our planet was shaped by the need to survive contact with something that views all organic life as food. The chamber erupted in overlapping translations as dozens of species tried to process this information simultaneously. The Devourers were legend, a nightmare story told to frighten young civilizations into cooperation. But the evidence on Sarah's holographic display was undeniable. The choice is simple, Sarah continued. You can try to quarantine humanity and face the Devourers with your current biology, or you can accept controlled exposure to our toxins and evolve into something that can fight back. Chancellor Mordake's tentacles had gone completely still. You're offering to poison us ... to save us? I'm offering to help you become something more than you are, Sarah replied. Something that can survive what's coming. Dr. Kesethara stepped forward, her medical training warring with her survival instincts. Ambassador, what you're proposing is unprecedented. Deliberately exposing entire species to toxins in hopes of triggering evolutionary adaptation. Mortality rate could be catastrophic. The mortality rate from the Devourers is 100%, Sarah replied simply. At least this way, you have a chance. The chamber fell silent as the representatives contemplated their options. Certain death from mechanical invaders, or possible death from biological evolution. It wasn't really a choice at all. Dr. Kesethara, Chancellor Mordak said finally, "In your professional opinion, is this proposed adaptation process feasible?" Dr. Kesethara looked at her scanner readings, then at the human standing calmly in the middle of what should have been a biohazard zone. "It's possible. Risky, but possible. We would need to develop controlled exposure protocols, monitor genetic changes, and probably sacrifice the first generation of test subjects." "I volunteer," Sarah said immediately. "Any human would. We've been living with controlled toxin exposure our entire evolutionary history. We can teach you how to survive it." The vote was closer than anyone expected. 24 species voted for the adaptation program, 22 voted against, and 1 abstained. By the narrowest possible margin, galactic civilization chose evolution over extinction. As the chamber emptied, and the representatives began the complex process of preparing their species for deliberate biological warfare, Dr. Kesethara found herself alone with Sarah. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "there's something I need to know. This whole situation, the devourers, the timing of human expansion, the biological compatibility between our species, it's all very convenient." Sarah's smile was enigmatic. "Dr. Kesethara, in my experience, the universe rarely offers convenient solutions to complex problems. But sometimes, if you're very lucky, the tools you need to survive are already in your hands." She paused at the chamber's exit. "Besides, humanity learned long ago that the best way to survive a hostile universe is to make sure you're not the most dangerous thing in it." As the door closed behind her, Dr. Kesethara was left with the realization that humanity's expansion into space hadn't been first contact at all. It had been preparation for a war that was already coming, and humans had spent millions of years evolving into the weapons that might save them all. The immunity paradox was complete. The species that was most toxic to galactic civilization might be the only thing that could save it. Asterisk.